Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I've recently been traveling in parts of Western Europe, and wherever I go there are Russians, especially in our temples. Some of them come from the devotees in Russia and they go to the Western countries and serve them. And some go as karmis to the Western countries and take up devotional service there. One devotee in Germany said, "We're being invaded by the Russians again." Well, that's a good invasion. It's quite noticeable where we go that wherever we go that in our temples that you can practically, even without asking, you can know who's Russian, because the devotees, Russia means from Russia and CIS countries. They're very welcoming to our sannyasis. So that's a good quality. When I first came to Russia, I think it was 1986, then Premavati, she said to me that the Russians are very hearty people. So if we offer our hearts to Krishna instead of into a bottle of vodka, then that will be the true glory of Russia. Anyway, we should understand that we have our various cultural designations, but sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tatparatmena nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchate. Who knows the translation to this verse? Very important verse, Prabhupada quoted many times. Please say it. You got it right?
Yeah.
Okay. You said it. No, it doesn't say Uttama Bhakti, but it says Bhakti, the general definition of Bhakti. Actually, if one is fully free from material designations, that means Uttama Bhakti, but it's not specifically stated in this verse. It just says Bhakti. So the first thing that Prabhupada always emphasized in preaching, we're not the body, we're eternal spirit, soul, part and parcel of Krishna. Nevertheless, he often, understanding people's cultural conditioning, he sometimes encouraged them in that way. When preaching to Indians, he would often quote from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, a specific verse. Bharata bhumite hoilo manusha janma ja janma shata kari karo para upaka. Who knows the meaning of that? What about any Indian body devotees here? Koi bharatiya bhakt yaha par upasthit hai? Kya? Piche kara rahe hai aur pravachan nahi sunte. They're standing up at the back and they're not listening to the Prabhupada, to the lecture. Hey hamare bharatiya bhayon, आइए, अंदर आइए. They're coming. I was just quoting a verse from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that Srila Prabhupada often quoted when he was speaking to Indian people. So I was wondering if any of our Indian friends were here who knew that verse. I'll say it again. It's in Bengali, but it's... You're not Bengalis, I think. You're from? You're from Bombay. Anyway, it's simple Bengali. It's similar to Hindi. It's... Prabhupada used to quote, Bharata bhumite hoilo manusha janmaja janma Sarthak kari karo para upakar. Do you know this verse? Alright, I'll tell you the meaning. Bharata Bhumite, in the land of Bharat, India, Hoilo, here it means those who had, Manusha Janmaja, those who have taken birth as human beings in the sacred land of India. Janma Sarthak kari, by making their lives meaningful, successful. Karo para upakar, they should perform welfare activities for others. So seeing as this appears in Chaitanya Charitamrita in the section where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking about benedicting the world with Krishna consciousness, not Shiva consciousness, then it's understood that this means that especially Indians have the responsibility to become Krishna conscious and spread it everywhere for the benefit of others. And so when he was in America, he would often say that you're all American boys and girls, you're all very intelligent, so you should spread Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission very widely. When Prabhupada was in Britain once, he was speaking to one Lord. Lord means highly placed meat-eater, drunkard and woman hunter. And gambler also. So they speak in a very high-class accent. And they're very polite. They very politely ask, please give me another piece of beefsteak. So Prabhupada was speaking to this Lord, and he said, well, it used to be a very great country, now you've lost everything. But if you just take a little advice from me, you can again rule the world. Of course, Prabhupada wasn't interested in mundane politics, but he wanted to see everyone happy with Krishna consciousness. So actually, rule the world, you can rule the world with love, not by force. Force is also there in politics. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's culture is that of love. Other religious groups speak of love of God, but who is He to love? They don't know who He is. So Prabhupada had great hopes for preaching Krishna consciousness in Russia. He was very keen to preach here in an era when no one thought it was possible to do so. He personally came here and planted the seeds of Krishna consciousness that are now growing into a luxuriant tree. So Krishna consciousness means love, and Russians are a hearty people. So just show who to love, how to love. That who to love, that is outlined in Bhagavad Gita as it is. And how to love, well, love is natural. But how to revive our forgotten love for Krishna is described, especially in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar Pradane, something like that. This movement is based on love and trust, Prabhupada said. Materialistic life means love money and trust no one. And that is very prominent nowadays in Moscow, isn't it? Moscow is becoming extremely materialistic. And wherever you look, there are huge, tall buildings coming up everywhere. And cost of living is extremely high. And as in all modern cities throughout the world, people have to work very hard just to get enough money because everything is so expensive, just to get to live. And in this materialistic atmosphere, degradation of consciousness is inevitable. So it's a great service to preach Krishna consciousness in this degraded situation. And we often find that as people become more and more degraded, that actually on one hand, although it's general consciousness is going down and down and down, on the other hand, as people become more and more desperate, the opportunities for preaching Krishna consciousness becomes better. So it is a great service to distribute these books here, anywhere, but as you are here in this country, you can consider it your Prabhu Datta Desh. These are also words from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. That means that the place given to us by Krishna or by our spiritual master to preach and serve Krishna. So you're all devotees. By the arrangement of Krishna, you've all been born in this country. So you've come to Krishna consciousness here. So you can do the greatest service to your country by joining the army. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan army. With the books which Prabhupada compared to bombs, that they explode all misconceptions. Very powerful. We should never underestimate the power of this book distribution. Srila Prabhupada worked so hard to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And he introduced so many wonderful programs for doing so. He personally traveled and preached incessantly, and thus inspired his sannyasis to follow in his footsteps to do so. He introduced temples and deity worship. Harinam Sankirtan in the cities of the world. It's even today, after so many years, it's something quite spectacular. When in New York's Fifth Avenue or London's Oxford Street, in Paris at the Eiffel Tower, in Moscow in the Arbat, devotees, the people are just wandering around looking at the local Maya, and all of a sudden, Hare Krishna. And they see these people dressed in a manner which unfortunately still appears rather unconventional, and very clearly blissful, and chanting the holy names of Krishna. So this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's contribution given to us through His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. What does His Divine Grace mean? It means transcendental mercy. He is giving transcendental mercy, or He who is transcendental mercy. Transcendental mercy has come to us in the form of Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada gave us Harinam, He gave us temples. As a child, He began Rath Yatra, and He established this all over the world. Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath. So Rath Yatra and so many other festivals. Prasad distribution. These are all programs, the culture of the spiritual world that Prabhupada gave us to attract us back to the lotus feet of Krishna. So, but nevertheless, among all these programs, he always emphasized distribution of transcendental literature, especially the books that he wrote. There are thousands and thousands of Vaishnava literatures. Srila Prabhupada translated 4 seminal books of the Vaishnava Sampada, Gauriya Vaishnava Sampada. Others also, but he gave special importance to Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Nectar of Devotion. Srila Prabhupada, although fully engaged in activities in Krishna conscious preaching and managing all day, would at night translate his books. If during in that space of time, if Prabhupada had only produced those books, that in itself would have been a remarkable achievement. But that he did so while constantly traveling around the world, preaching to people. As he often said, to bring even one person to Krishna consciousness, we have to spend gallons of blood. In the beginning, he personally cooked, served the prasadam, cleaned up afterwards. He was overseeing and personally involved in the details of a burgeoning worldwide movement. Burgeoning means expanding. Getting bigger. Wherever he went, there would be so many disciples anxious to see him. He generally lectured at least once a day and more often twice a day. In other words, he led an extraordinarily busy life. And while doing all these other things, he also produced these masterpieces of transcendental literature. So Prabhupada emphasized the importance of distributing these books. And they are having and will have their effect more and more and more. So please try to distribute these books more and more and more. We know that this will please Srila Prabhupada, because he knows this will change the course of human civilization. Tadvag visargo janatagha viplavo yasmin prati shlokam abadhavatyapi namanyanantazya yashonkitani yatshrinvanti gayanti gunanti sadavaha. Who knows the translation to this verse? Know this one? It's not quoted so much as the Sarvopadi Vinaya. Anyone apart from our Pandit sitting here? Anyone knows this? This is a very important verse. At least the book distributors should know this. Prabhupada quotes it right in the preface to Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, please tell us. You'll either have to come close or shout very loud. Yeah, it's from the first canto of Bhagavatam. Okay, it sounds like he knows what he's saying, so please say it again in the mic so everyone can hear clearly. Thank you very much. Spasiba Bolshoi. Sorry for my bad Russian. So it specifically says, Janata Agha Viplava, a revolution in the sinful population. Now this doesn't mean that this book is meant to make political foment, but it means a revolution of consciousness. Sinful population means those who are far away from Krishna. Now, Srimad Bhagavatam is traditionally studied and recited among pious people. Srila Prabhupada's preaching of Bhagavad Katha, the philosophy of Srimad Bhagavatam, distribution among all kinds of people, is the first time in history that this has been done. Many times distributing books, you give to someone, they're smoking a cigarette, and they smoking the cigarette, they put it in their mouth and they take the Bhagavatam. In India, this wouldn't be allowed. People know you have to be very pure even to touch Srimad Bhagavatam. Previously, people would take bath and then put on fresh cloth, tilak, have archaman, and then only they would touch Shastra, because it's worshipable like a deity. But preaching in the West means we have to accept that people don't know this culture. This is the first time that an attempt has been made to preach this exalted Bhagavad philosophy among people who are basically quite simple. So practically speaking, this verse predicting that the Bhagavad the Srimad Bhagavatam will create a revolution of consciousness in the sinful population predicts Srila Prabhupada's production and distribution of this in the world today. If it doesn't refer to Srila Prabhupada, then who is it referring to? It must be his preaching that's being referred to. So we can understand that this is a very special time in history, and that Srila Prabhupada's books have a very important place in making that revolution of consciousness. Everyone knows there's serious problems in the world. There's more and more fighting and open hatred between peoples. Many people, they don't have even friends. I was just in Finland and they gave me a one-room apartment to stay in. So, I mean, it's one room, a tiny little kitchen, and a toilet, and that's it. Just for one person, just big enough for one person to live in. And I was told this is very common, very popular in Finland. Many people live alone, they never marry, and they just pass their life. They work, and that's it. They work, they come back to their little cubicle, and that's it. Sometimes the smell comes out of the cubicle and you realize someone died. No friends. Maybe they keep a dog. Maybe they keep a dog for their friends. I think they're not even allowed to, because they go out to work all day. So they keep some fish or a budgerigar and something like that. A little bird that twits and twits. Like a little parrot. In England it's very common. You must have seen in people's houses. A blue or green color, bright color. Like a parakeet. I think actually they're called, another name is parakeet. It's like a small parrot. Sometimes you'd see Prabhupada, show his ecstatic emotions very much. He showed it by his constant engagement in Krishna's service. That's how he showed it. But he's very cautious not to make an exhibition of his internal ecstasy, because there are so many people who would imitate this. Plus, out of humility, it's not something to be advertised. But sometimes Prabhupada would cry to see the condition of the fallen souls. One devotee said to Prabhupada, seeing how people are suffering so much, I sometimes feel so sorry for them. Prabhupada said, why only sometimes? Why do you only sometimes feel sorry for them? So Prabhupada's whole being was dedicated to giving this knowledge of Krishna to help others come to Krishna. And he beseeched us to help him serve his Guru Maharaj in this mission. So we can only on behalf of Srila Prabhupada ask you also to do that. Of course, most of our devotees being married are in the same plight as that of even non-devotees. They're just working, just to maintain their existence. And even though we're lucky enough by divine grace to receive this highest knowledge, often due to bad association we see that devotees are sucked into the degrading whirlpool of degradation. And instead of being able to help in bringing others to pure Krishna consciousness, they themselves are often sucked into watching TV and eating kami food and talking nonsense and sports and illicit sex and so many bad things. So how to keep strong and push forward this Krishna consciousness movement? Everyone has to make more effort. We should be very strict to follow the principles given that we promised to follow. And we should take advantage of devotee association. At least on Sundays, come associate with devotees, join in the kirtan, and try to spread Krishna consciousness in whatever way we can. Attack is the best means of defense. In other words, Maya is attacking us. We might become tired and think, oh, it's too difficult to follow. But Maya never becomes tired. She's always ready to catch us. Even after 20 years of practicing Krishna consciousness, if we just say, Maya, where are you? She'll say, I'm right next to you. I'm ready. So, better try to preach Krishna consciousness, difficult as it may be. We can start to do that even in our day-to-day lives. We don't see people, they don't like what's called, I don't know if there's a word in Russia, proselytation. Means like aggressive preaching. We said the same word. They don't like the Jehovah's Witness kind of approach. But if we just, without appearing to want to condemn them or convert them, if we just say, they say, well, why are you vegetarian? Well, it's a religious principle. I'm following some religious principles. Or even more gradually, instead of saying, I'm a Krishnaite, you could say, well, I'm following a yoga system. It's Bhakti yoga based on the principles of pure living and devotion to the Supreme. So in this way, if you just introduce it gradually, and some people might be skeptical, but if we're always afraid of what people think, then we can never preach. Many people are they're interested also. So if you tell people, and then if they're interested, you can give them some book. I mean, just like the people, your neighbors and the people you work with. And in this way, you can also help to spread Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. That will also require you to come to yourself to come to a higher level of consciousness. Because as long as you are pretending not to be a devotee, then you can act in any way you like, kind of. But if you tell that you're chanting Hare Krishna, then people expect you to behave in a more civilized and cultured manner. So that becomes incumbent upon you. So that's a good. It means you become obliged like that, and that's also good for us. So those who are directly distributing books, they're directly preaching in a very powerful way. But everyone has their role to play in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. And if we're actually enthused by the mellows of the Sankirtan movement, if we're actually desirous to please Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Parampara Acharyas, then we must try to follow their instruction. Jare dekho tare kaha Krishna upadesh amaragya guru hoya tara idesh. What's the meaning of this verse? Another Prabhupada favorite. Who's saying? Who's saying? I didn't see. I only heard 2 words. Prabhaveda. Who can say what is the meaning of this? Jare dekho tare kaha Krishna upadesh amaragya guru hoya tara idesh. You know? Prabhupada say?
Wherever you are, preach in your land and become guru. Wherever you are, preach wherever you are and become guru.
Yeah, but say in Russian. So everyone should try to follow this. Especially people we see every day. Somehow try and help them. Give them a little prasadam or something. There was one devotee, he was living in a housing area somewhere in some town in California. And he didn't want people to know that he was a devotee because he thought they might think he's too strange. So every morning, early in the morning, he would rise and put on dhoti and tilak and do puja at home and quietly do kirtan. Then he'd change into kami clothes and go to work. And one day as he was going out to work, one of his neighbors approached him and said, "Don't mind me saying, but I go for an early morning walk and I've been seeing through your window you seem to be doing some kind of religious activities. Is that Hare Krishna? I'm very interested in that. Could you tell me something more about it?" So he was trying to hide away so that his neighbors wouldn't see, but his neighbors were interested in learning. And most people, they're either neutral or a little bit interested. Most people are not bigoted against us. It's just, a few people, they make a big noise, but we shouldn't be, and they say, "Oh, Krishna, I'm very mad," and we shouldn't become intimidated by them. By now everyone knows, they've heard what is Krishna, they've heard something about it. And devotees have appeared on TV many times and in the newspapers, so people know it's something which is there. They're not maybe not for it or against it, but they may be curious to know what it is. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of what others think. In many cases it's much better than we think it is. But anyway, we shouldn't be so much concerned about public opinion. We're not servants of the public, we're servants of Krishna and the Acharya. So let us try to preach Krishna consciousness, at least by just being devotees and without making a big show, just gradually letting people know that we're devotees. This is something very good and we'd like you to know about it also. I travel around the world, I don't even take kami clothes with me. I think most of our sannyasis like that also, unless they're going to some country where the immigration is severe, something like that. Indrajamna Swami never wears kami clothes, for instance, isn't it? Unless like that. He went to Dubai about 3-4 years ago. So at that time, just to enter the country, he must have. So like that. And you can read his Diary of a Traveling Preacher. So many people he meets just in the street, in the airport, and they're interested, and he preaches to them many times. Wonderful exchanges. So have faith in Krishna. At least on Sundays when you come here, you can go in devotional dress with tilak. That's very dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees. Gaura Bhakta Priya Vesha Dadhamana Tilak Tulasi Mala Shobhamana. Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes how the devotees, they like to wear the dress which is very dear to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. And they are beautified by tilak and tulasi mala. Usually the ladies, they are more ready to wear sari because it looks very feminine. But sometimes the men don't like to wear dhoti because they also think that looks feminine. Though one devotee in England told me that nowadays there's so much interest in kung fu and karate that this kind of dress, people think it's actually kind of macho. But anyway,
I was told.
You were also told that?
One man on the street, he said he bought the book because he said he saw the movie Bulletproof Monk, it's really cool, and gave him the book.
That's a karate film or something?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Some crazy book. Yeah. Tell. There's so many funny stories. People, they have such funny ideas. How sometimes the way they buy the book, it's so mundane, but somehow they're getting the book. You know Titikshu, he used to be in Liverpool, preaching there. He's in the Manor now. So one devotee, he was preaching, he was distributing books in Liverpool, which is a famous city in England. I think it's famous mostly because of the Beatles and Liverpool Football Club. You've heard of Liverpool Football Club? Okay, you have to know something about this to understand this story. Okay, so Liverpool Football Club, their strip colour is red. And their rival team in Liverpool is called Everton Football Club, and they play in blue. So Titikshu Prabhu, he approached one man with a book, a Krishna book. And the man said, well, I quite like the idea of Krishna consciousness, but I have one real problem, one real hang-up about Krishna. You see, I've been a Liverpool fan since I was 6 years old, and Krishna is blue. So Titikshu explained that, well, actually there's different incarnations, and the Varaha avatar is also red. So, oh really? Okay, I'll take a book. So, really a long, long way away from any kind of transcendental understanding. Somehow Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inspires the devotees to say the right thing. Anyway, somehow or other try to bring people to Krishna consciousness and make the Russian revolution. Russia should dominate the world. The Russians should go everywhere and dance and chant and sing in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement and make the whole world Krishna conscious. Anyone wants some adventure? Mahavishnu Maharaj, he's preaching in Africa, traveling up the river Congo, distributing books in French. He doesn't even speak French, but they got a lot of French books donated. So there's people in the villages along the Congo, and all of a sudden, the first white man they ever saw in their life comes out with a shaved head and a ponytail, dressed in these clothes, and tries to speak to them in a language he doesn't understand, and sell them a book about something they never heard of. You remember all of that? So he's reporting that most people in Africa, still they never heard of Krishna or Krishna consciousness. Just in South Africa our movement is very well established. And it's going on some way or other in a few places in Africa. But it's a huge continent. And people are very religious. They're very much inclined to God consciousness. Maybe because they have very little hope of any happiness in material life whatsoever. It's a very disturbed and difficult and poverty-stricken and strife-stricken and disease-stricken area. People are very religious. You hear stories of, it's not uncommon for people to walk 30 kilometers one way and 30 kilometers back every Sunday to attend the nearest church. And although Christianity in the West is practiced in a very staid manner, staid, you know what that means? It means very reserved. But when the Africans go to church, they bring their drums and They sing and they jump, and I think they should just learn to join the Sankirtan movement. Christian missionaries don't even like it. They say, what are they doing with all these drums? They should just keep quiet and pray quietly. So we should give them Mridanga drums. Unfortunately, in ISKCON at the present time, Mridangas are going out of fashion, and African drums are coming in fashion. It makes a very strong beat, no doubt. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu likes the sweet mridanga, madhur, madhur, madhur bhaja. So, that strong beat, it makes like some kind of techno rock sound. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for higher consciousness, we have to chant Hare Krishna with the sweet mridanga that is very dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So imbibe this Vaishnava culture and spread it. Make your lives glorious. Help to save the conditioned souls. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's request. This is Prabhupada's mission. And our lives will be successful if we take part in it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Is there any vapros? Vapros ist. No, my Russian's not very good. Anyway, any questions? Fortunately, we have a very competent Prabhupchik. You can probably answer the questions better than me. Did he translate that properly? You rascal! Put you in a difficult situation. Alright, I'm sorry. I won't embarrass you anymore. Anyway, any questions? Yes, you want to know how to go to Africa. But Mahavishnu Maharaj is a very strict sannyasi. He might not want to travel with a woman. What's that question? You have to have a very loud voice. Okay. Russians are very strong. They're telling you to come back to Russia?
They're saying that they need more of me now.
They need more of you.
More people. That's the comment.
So you become like him. You should make your mission to make all the babushkas in Russia Krishna conscious. I agree. We should have more Uttama Shloka. He should expand himself. Yes. You don't have this cordless mic? You have cordless mic? It's not cordless. Oh, he's got a good voice.
How to achieve success in Krishna consciousness. Thank you.
How to achieve success? Well, first of all, we should understand what success means. If you think that success, that's a good idea. You can write the question down. You think that, well, I'll start off as a brahmachari, then I'll gradually work my way up and become temple president, then GBC, sannyasi, guru.
Sannyasi, guru.
See, baby is intelligent, he's protesting. Maharaj is giving the wrong idea. Very intelligent baby. Now, success in Krishna consciousness means Trinadapi sunichena tarodapi sahishnana amanila manadena kirtaniya siddha harihi. Now, I hope you all know this verse. You all know this verse? Okay, all say it together.
Давайте все вместе повторите.
Okay, do you want to say the translation together in Russian? You can say and they can join together. Yeah. Don't be proud because you know it better than others. Well, it's easy to say, isn't it? Easy to say, but because we are puffed up, it's not so. We have material attachments. It's not so easy to practice in our lives. Therefore, we have the process of bhakti sadhana given to us by Rupa Goswami Prabhupada on behalf of Lord Chaitanya. I said Rupa Goswami, but anyway, yeah, Prabhupada delivered it on behalf of Rupa Goswami, on behalf of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But we actually have to follow that process. Many times devotees ask, how can we become determined? How can we be successful in Krishna consciousness? How can we be humble? How can we this? How can we that? The answer is we follow the standard process of Krishna consciousness and Krishna will help us. Yeah, some other question is there?
Yeah.
Either one.
Could you please tell about your last preaching places you visited?
Last preaching places I visited. Well, I've been traveling a lot. I left India about 3 weeks ago, something like that. And then first I went to the festival in Lithuania. That's like from the Baltic countries and Finland, devotees come. About 300-400 devotees. These festivals are very important for maintaining and enthusing our spiritual lives. So present there were Jayapataka Swami, Bhakti Chaitanya Swami, Bhakti Vigyan Goswami, Harishauri Prabhu, Dhirashanta Prabhu, and two of my god sisters, Lakshmi Muni and Dakuti. But this time we very much missed the presence of Niranjan Maharaj. Please pray to Krishna that his health recovers so that we can avail of his association. Then from Lithuania I went to Sarajevo in Bosnia, and Jayapataka Swami was there again. But he went to another place. He went to England for 1 day to attend a Rath Yatra and then went there. No. So he's always traveling more than me. A lot more. So we have a small center there and devotees are gradually trying to expand the activity. And Purnachandra Prabhu is staying there for a year actually. And I met him again in Croatia. And like this, so many places. Croatia, Slovenia, Switzerland, Czech Republic, Germany, Austria, did I say? Austria. That Jayapataka Swami, he would go to Bosnia, then Australia, and then Lithuania, but in 1 week, but not me. He actually does. When I met him in Lithuania, he'd just come from America. He was in Europe. He went to America for 3 days to attend a festival and came back to Europe. Just amazing. Yeah, okay. If you want to hear about the really exciting preaching adventures, then you have to read Indradyumna Maharaj's diary. That you know already. That a lot of attention goes into writing books, because Prabhupada told me to write books. So afterwards you can see some of these books. Yeah, then next.
Why it is said that holy name is no different from Krishna if by chanting we don't feel presence of Krishna in His name? How we can feel Krishna's presence in His name?
You said it in Russian already. No, but you don't perceive it doesn't mean there's any fault in the holy name. The fault is with you, because we differentiate. To appreciate the presence of Krishna, we actually have to become purified. So that a lot of the purification, depends on our motive. Do we actually want to become purified? Are we actually serious to give up our material attachments? There is no problem to become Krishna conscious, but we are attached to not being Krishna conscious. If we ask everyone who wants to get Krishna prema, everyone will put their hand up, probably. But if we ask that how many of us are actually very serious to give up our material attachments, how many of us could honestly say that? So if we're not very serious to give up our material attachments, that means we're not very serious to attain Krishna prema. So if we ask who wants Krishna prema, everyone go, Jai! Then Are we really going to work on that? Are we really prepared to take up Krishna consciousness very seriously, take to hearing and chanting very seriously, give up all our material attachments and the narratas? Why should Krishna show himself to us if we make, we alternate between Krishna and Maya? Krishna's the spare tire when we get fed up with Maya. Then, other questions?
What is the difference between Krishna consciousness and Shiva consciousness?
Shiva is actually a name for Krishna, but is generally associated. Shiva means auspicious. The name of Shiva is generally associated with the demigod or more than demigod, Lord Shiva, who is known as Shankara, Mahadev, Parameshwara, and so many names, Umapati. So what's the difference? Who can say from Brahma Samhita? What's the verse? You should study Prabhupada's books. What is the verse? Who can say? Anyone can say? Sanskritam. Kshirang yatha. Anyone? Kshirang yatha dadhi vikara vishesha yogat. Who knows can say? Sanjayate nahi tatah pritagasti hetu. Yah shambhutam apitata sanataiti karya govindavadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Please give the translation. Similar but different. There is a different result from worshipping Krishna and from worshipping Shiva. Generally the worshippers of Shiva, they become ghosts or like that. Or they merge into the impersonal Brahman, which is not much better. Actually it's worse. Amen.
How can we know how much we freed from material desires?
When we're fully attached to Krishna, then automatically we're free from material desire. If we have gross anarthas, then it should be clear to us that we're still a long way to go. First give up the gross anarthas. Now, like I was saying, watching TV, eating kami food, illicit sex, and so on and so on. These are common anarthas which devotees seem to think that it's kind of okay to do this and chant Hare Krishna, but it really doesn't help us to progress in Krishna consciousness at all. Okay, anything else?
How we can become sincere devotee of Krishna?
Why are we not sincere? Why are we attached to anything else? If we sincerely desire to be sincere, then that is sincerity in itself. If you're just asking the question but you don't really want to be sincere, then it's hypocritical. And if you're actually interested to be sincere, then that is of itself sincerity. Practically speaking, we should follow all the rules and regulations given for becoming advanced in Krishna consciousness. We should follow the order of the spiritual master. Don't take initiation and fail to follow. That is not sincerity. Anything else?
Guru Maharaj, in your book, Brahmacharya and Krishna Consciousness, there is one point that Brahmacharya should be conducting.
We don't have copies of that here?
Mm-hmm.
Brahmacharya in Russian? Is it there?
It is.
In Russian? Oh, yes. Okay, I couldn't see it from here. Okay. Yeah, you can put it back.
In your book, Brahmacharya and Krishna Consciousness, there is one point that Brahmacharis should be conducting daily, morning and evening, fire sacrifices. Can you please explain what does it mean? Thanks in advance.
What does it mean? Well, it means what it says. Traditionally, Brahmacharis in the Gurukul do so. Yeah, the Brahmachari life as it's conducted at present is different in some of the practices from that of traditional brahmacharis, although in principle it's the same. So if there are no more questions, then I will just say, chant Hare Krishna and be happy, and Slave Srila Prabhupada.
Slava Srila Prabhupada.
Okay, Slava Srila Prabhupada. I'm sorry for my lousy Russian.
So Bhakti Vikasa Maharaj ki.
As I was saying, Prabhupada, he told me to write books. I'm writing books, and they're being translated in Russian. Apart from, many of you may have seen these books, many of you may not have seen a relatively new book about pilgrimage in India, and we also have a reprint of the Bangshidhas Babaji book, and many books in English or Hindi में भी कुछ VCD है, Hindi pravachan.